So how was your final girls meet-up last week?
Oh my goodness, it was so much fun. So we went to the theatre on the Thursday night to see The Woman in Black, and I have never seen that before. And I think I'd worked myself up into a panic because everyone kept saying, like, oh, they come out into the audience and all this, and I'm just not for audience participation. And especially with horror, like when you go to see a horror film, you know it's not coming through the screen to get you. Just with a play, you're like, oh my God, they could be anywhere. And then there was like 3 seats empty in front of us, and me and Emma, who were sitting next to each other, were like, is that on purpose? Is something going to come out of 3 seats? You know, you start to panic. But I have to say, the play was excellent. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I've never seen it before. It was very atmospheric, and there were like a good few jump scares, which I think it's quite hard to create in a sort of theatre setting, because there's no soundtrack or anything like that. Yeah, it's just like, you know, things appearing or not appearing, or are you seeing that or whatever. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. However, I did get home and I needed Chris to announce loudly what rooms he was coming into, because I was very jumpy afterwards. But I would highly recommend, if it comes back, to go and see it and sit in the stalls so that you get the full experience of, you know, they do start sort of off stage, etc. So that was really good. And then on the Sunday, we all met up again in stereo for just our usual sort of like monthly catch up. And we watched, Go and Jam Haunted Asylum, because the theme for this month was influencers. So that was a good, I mean, don't get me wrong, we spend hardly any time talking about the film, and it just digresses into absolute nonsense, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
But it was very good. No, I mean, we are super professional in this podcast, and we're just like straight to the point, you know. I would like to take this opportunity actually to say sorry to Abby, who I met for the first time on Thursday at the theatre, and we were sitting opposite each other in Bucks, and she was like, oh my God, are you Mary? I listened to your podcast. I was really flattered, and I was like, that's lovely. Found out she was a doctor, and the only thing I could think of to ask her, first time meeting her, first question I asked her was, what's the weirdest thing you found inside someone? So sorry, Abby. She did have good stories, though. She did have good stories.
I bet,
yeah. But sorry, that was my first time meeting. I just don't make a good first impression, do I? She's like, oh, I listened to your podcast. I'm like, what have you found inside someone? It's just not good.
Yeah. And did she think you were the star of the show and I'm just a sidekick?
Absolutely not. I think everyone sees you as the voice of common sense, because I've seen nothing, read nothing, done nothing.
Well, you're addressing that at a very fast pace over the last couple of years, I think.
Yes. So for all these other groups and podcasts, I do actually have to go and do homework for as well. And and it just, do you know what? It's a lovely, lovely group. And there's so many things going on in Glasgow that I think I wasn't really aware of. Like there's these like seed talks and stuff that go on, and I've signed up to go to the next one of that, because it's about Gothic literature and sort of women's place in writing sort of Gothic novels. So I thought that would be quite interesting. There's cinema trips, obviously, like monthly meetups and things like that. And how exciting is this? The Final Girls, so the Carrie 50th anniversary screening is part of the Glasgow Film Festival. And the Final Girls have all booked tickets. You go to the Pyramid in Anderson. They're taking prom pictures. It's like a full-on like interactive experience, and we're all going to get dressed up in like prom dresses and tiaras and stuff and go. Nice. So I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be really, really good fun. Fake blood.
That'll be excellent. Obviously. Yep. Fake blood strawberry sauce, because that's what they used, isn't it? Some sort of like.
It's a food colouring and
strawberry syrup or something like that, because it looks really good on screen. It sort of pops out. It looks really.
Imagine you end up very sticky.
Oh God, Yep. Ooh. I've seen too many films where somebody slips in a pool of blood and ends up lips.
Have you seen the way the film festival are doing the press this year?
No, I've not seen it. No, what are they doing?
It has completely changed, and I actually am up shit creek a little bit, because I had planned to see about 25 films, and I'll be lucky if I see about 15 now.
Oh wow!
Because first of all, I'm only taking the second week of the festival off work just due to holidays, but there's only 20 press screenings total. That's it. It's like a very select few films, whereas I felt like last year you could pretty much go, and for the past few years actually, you could pretty much go and see anything in a press screening. So there's 20. they're all first thing in the morning, about 9:30. Some of them are at the Odeon at Springfield Quay. Some of them are in GFT, obviously just depending on availability, because Cineworld is obviously no longer there. The vast majority of them actually are between that Wednesday to Sunday, where I'm not going to be available, which is a bit annoying, but it is what it is. And you're only allowed to request a total of 8 screeners. I had about 20 last year that I requested.
Of course, because was it screeners, or did they had in? See, when you say screeners, do you mean actual?
Like they send you a link and you.
The link ones.
No, they send you a link and you watch it. Obviously, like it's password protected, etc. Now, I don't know if this is because they don't feel they're getting enough coverage from press passes that they give out, screeners that they give out. I don't know. I do. I'm not just saying this, but I do review everything that I watch at the film festival. Good, bad, and the ugly. And so it's really slimmed down this year. Now, I had bought a couple of tickets for things like the surprise film and obviously the Carrie anniversary, because I wanted to see them anyway, and you can't get screeners for them. So it's very strange. It feels very slimmed down, and I don't know if that's a conscious choice, because they just don't feel, as I say, they're getting like their money's worth out of putting on all these screenings, and maybe they're not seeing enough coverage from it. But yeah, I had planned to see a good like 25 to 30 films, and now that'll be about 15. Which is a bit of a shame, but so if it's a financial decision, I get it.
When they do the screenings for press, and it's so they're doing those first thing in the morning, like you said, between the Wednesday and the Sunday. So it's like, so is it 1 or 2 films or whatever you see, or is it just the one film that you would see normally?
So in years gone by, I have sat through 2 or 3 press screenings in a day.
Yeah.
Sometimes in the same cinema, not even moving. Sometimes you just run from Cineworld to Glasgow Film. This year, I think there is there can't be no more than 2 press screenings per day.
That's interesting.
And as I say, I've restricted the number of screener links that you can request as well. I mean, I've put in my requests. I've asked for all 8. I wanted to use up as many as I could.
Of course, yes.
But it seems really slimmed down this year.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when I was still sort of more actively doing it, there was loads of screeners you could get. It was just there was 2 levels of them. Some you had to request access, but that was like the very few of them. It was maybe about 6 or 7 that you would have to request, and the rest there was upwards of like 30 films you could request.
And
that's quite strange. Yeah. I was speaking to a couple of other critics who do the press days, and they were saying that last year it was, in previous years, you got tickets, you got like 5 tickets or 10 tickets, depending on the outlet. If it was something major, like a newspaper or radio or whatever, but you would get 10 tickets, but you would get 5 if you're like sort of the level that we're at in terms of
We used to get 5,
Yeah. So, but they scrapped that, and it was just press screenings that they did. And one of the guys was saying, it's not the same because you're not sitting watching a film with an audience, and that plays a part in your review as well, if possible. I know it's not always possible, because obviously I do the press days and stuff, and you're just sitting on a screen with maybe a dozen other people watch the film, and it's not quite the same. But at the film festival, a lot of it is based on the atmosphere of the film, how the audience takes the film as well. So, but I can understand that, because there were people booking screenings and then not turning up. And there was films that were said to be completely sold out, and yet you would see the odd, space in places. And obviously, at like 10, 11, 12 pounds a time, it all makes a difference, because they're running on sort of very small margins. And that may be the case again, why they're doing it this way. That they're just limiting it, because they need to license the films. Obviously, they've licensed them for a viewing or 2 viewings at the film festival itself, so they need to license it for an additional one, and then they need to rent the space. And if they rent the space in Odeon, that's a couple £100 a time. Even for themselves, there's still a cost involved. So maybe they're trying to minimise that. Well, maybe not, because if they're saying there's 20 films that you can get screeners for, then they're going to have to put in 20. Or if there's a number of films, I know I'm getting mixed up. So it sounds as if they're just trying to minimise it, and maybe just to force reviews on certain titles that may not get picked up in the same way. Because they know that the people who actually do the critics stuff, especially the likes of ourselves, they'll buy a bunch of tickets anyway. Because that's what I used to do. I would get like 5 tickets, and I would buy another 15, 20 tickets. I would
Mhm.
go and see, if I was going to see a press thing, it would say like at 1:00 in the afternoon. I would go for the 10:30 screening, which is a freebie
Mhm.
screening, and then book something at 3:30 and then again at 5:30. So I'd
Yeah.
be there all day and I'd review them, because that's what it's all about, really. You know, it's the same
Yeah.
sort of thing as going to other places and going to festivals and stuff. I mean, compared to that, the Sitges Film Festival, which obviously is a bit more expensive, you have to pay a sort of flat fee in order to get that. But you got, I think it was 35 tickets, 35 films you got access to. So you could book them all, and they changed it slightly, so it was different tiers and stuff. Like you could only have, there was like tier 1 films, which were like the really popular ones. So they didn't want those to have like loads of film critics going to it, because then again, people wouldn't turn up, or they'd get a screener for something, and so there'd be empty spaces. But so there was like tier 1 and tier 2, and you could only have so many a day of the tier 1s, or you had maybe out of the 40, you maybe had 8 or 9 tier 1s, and then you had to sort of slot everything else around that, which was fine. But yeah, it was far more expansive. You got to see everything. You know, it was just. But yeah, it sounds as if obviously it's new people running it completely this year. Obviously, Alison Gardner's last year was passed, so now it's like a completely new team who are running it. You have one coordinator, don't you? Because it was Alison and
Gallagher. He's the programmer. Well, he was the programmer, but he is now running it with Sinead Daly.
But Alison was running it as well with what was the guy's name? That's terrible. It was only 2 years ago. You know, they were sort of co-running it.
Oh gosh, yeah, I know who you mean. And I've completely forgotten his name as well now that you've said it. Yep, fantastic. We're passionate festival goers, so we are.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but yes, so they obviously changed that just down to 1, and now they're just moving it forward again. And there's new ideas and stuff. Obviously they dodged a bullet with not actually having any screenings at the CCA, which is interesting.
I know, because
that would have been a bit of a disaster.
Chris was supposed to go to a gig there in March, a gig that had been cancelled from last October at the same venue, actually, and had been punted down to March. And now he's like, well, I just don't think this will be happening, because obviously that's immediate effect. Apparently, they were all told via a Zoom call, which is the exact way to make your staff redundant.
Yep. For anybody that doesn't know, I'm just obviously for the benefit of the pod, it was announced last week that the CCA, the Centre for Contemporary Arts in Glasgow, is shutting its doors. And like Mary said, there was a Zoom call to all the staff saying, about coming in tomorrow, it's all right, you don't need to. Yeah, basically everybody getting made redundant. They've had financial difficulties for a couple of years. They got a bit of a bailout in 2024, but they've been embroiled in not so much, well, there was financial scandals as well, and sort of questions about mismanagement, but the Palestine Action Group has also targeted them because they didn't come out against the Israeli invasion of Palestine. They didn't take a stance on that, and because of that, the Palestine Action Group have actually been targeting the CCA on a monthly basis. They actually it's unbelievable. They targeted them. CCA got the police involved and got people arrested, which they later regretted, because they said we shouldn't have involved the police. But yeah, kind of what you're supposed to do when it's completely disrupting your business. And then they decided when they did it again, they says, no, we're not going to call the police. So the Palestine Action Group actually set up monthly protests, and they actually put up posters about the forthcoming protest and what they were going to be doing in it and all this. And it's like, whoa. You know,
I suspect we might see more of that at the Glasgow Film Festival as well, because although obviously the GFT, as in the venue, have come out and said we're not going to stock Coca-Cola, obviously because they have Israeli bases, there was a little bit of a fumble, if you remember, a few months back, where they wouldn't come out and condemn fully, because I think there was it like Israeli-based backers or funders, or funding or whatever. And of course, the GFT this year has had its funding cut by the Scottish government. So they're probably not in a position to scare off any more funding, which is perhaps why this press setup, for example, has changed this year, obviously, because you don't want to waste money on screenings, etc., where there's maybe only 2 press people turning up or whatever. But yes, I think it'll be interesting to see how it functions this year. I actually was voice noting Alex, the editor at Nordic Watchlist, because I was like, none of the Swedish films, obviously the films that we plan to cover for Nordic Watchlist, none of them are press screeners. So I was like, I'm going to have to scramble to try and find link screener copies of them so that we can actually do our coverage as well, because as soon as they announced the country focus, we were like, oh my god, amazing, we're going to get so much out of this, and then nothing. So I think it'll be interesting to see how it runs this year. I think the move to the Odeon is quite an interesting one, because people are going to have to move out of town obviously to get there, and then back in potentially, a wee bit of back and forth. So we'll see how it goes. I think that obviously this is their the first year of Sinead and Paul running it, so there's obviously a lot of pressure on them to deliver as well. They've chosen to do things quite differently, even just in terms of, as we've talked about, the opening gala is a documentary, not a traditional sort of fiction film, and they've chosen to obviously close with James McAvoy's directorial debut. So we'll see how it goes, but I think it's just, for me, I had made a list in my head, and I thought, right, I'm going to get about 30 films seen here, and then for all of a sudden for it to be about half that, I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I could go and buy tickets to films. There's no stopping me doing that. But
yes, of course,
it was just a wee bit of a change of setup, shall we say. And also, you don't get tickets anymore. It's an app, which does and you don't get a press badge, which does make me quite sad, because I used to love walking around town with a press badge on.
Yeah, I've got a wee collection of badges from
me too.
A couple of festivals and things. Yeah, it's not quite the same thing, is it, I suppose? But again, it's, well, if they handed out passes to people, then they'd be saying, well, that's plastic waste that you're creating and all this kind of thing. Yes, I can fully understand why they do it, but it's just a bit of a shame, because it is nice.
Yeah, it changes the experience. It does. I know
of course it does. Yeah,
a bit arsey maybe, but it does. It changes the experience. But as I say, we'll see how it goes. I think that I've booked a couple of tickets for films, as I say, that I wanted to see, just to make sure that I definitely got to see them. But it'll be interesting to see how it all pans out this year, and also what the attendance at the press screenings are like as well, because maybe, and I'm not saying this as a fact, but maybe because when they were in Cineworld, it maybe looked like there was less people there because we were in big screens, whereas because a lot of them are taking place in like GFT3, which obviously is tiny, maybe they'll look more well attended, but actually that won't be the case. It's just less seats. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
I suspect they're pushing people towards films that they don't think is going to get much coverage.
One of the biggies are in the press list.
They'll be expecting them to be covered anyway. The thing about the Odeon, I think, is they've probably thought, well, yes, you have a hardcore audience who will go along and watch 3 and 4 films in a day, but the majority of people will go and see one film. So if it's at the Odeon, fair enough. You've got parking and everything down there as well, so that's fine. It's not a big deal. So people will be prepared to travel to different things, not necessarily your hardcore folk, because they may say, well, I don't have time. It's going to take me 45 minutes to get back up to the GFT minimum.
I know, whereas usually you could just run downstairs to your next screening.
So and I think the funding thing's quite interesting as well, because obviously if they're getting less money, they're trying to make it go further. And I suspect that they're wanting to see a better return for the money that is getting outlaid for critics as well, for press, because they get filmmakers that come in and promote their films and things like that. So it'd be interesting to see what the numbers are like for that, like for previous years, for people sort of like engaging with press, and like you've probably been given a list of, or you'll be giving a list of people who are actually going to be attending in the days that they're going to be there. All the sort of press updates you get say, well, this person, this film's showing on the Thursday, so therefore this filmmaker's going to do a Q&A on a Thursday night, but he's available for interview and things like that as well. It'll be interesting to see if that generates more interest in actually doing interviews and things like that with the filmmaker as well. So they have to pay for all that as well. I don't know if they have to pay for accommodation and things, but they certainly have. There's like fees for
especially
actually
in the past 2 years. There's been really big stars, like you've had your Viggo Mortensons, your Ed Harris, your Jessica Lange, all that. There have been really, really big names present. I don't know if, because obviously Edinburgh Film Festival is kind of no more, as it were. I don't know if maybe the Glasgow Film Festival, saw an upsurge in people sort of wanting to review or whatever, and maybe it's just not that itself hasn't sort of led to more coverage, more funding or whatever. Maybe maybe it hasn't materialized the way they wanted it to. I think for me, I know obviously it's 20 odd years old, but I think it still feels like something in its infancy. It's maybe not quite got the legacy that Edinburgh had behind it as well. And
Edinburgh had been running since like the 50s or something, hadn't it? So in one form or another, but yes, it's been around a long time, whereas Glasgow, like I say, has been around for 20 years. And for the first 10 of those, it was really quite small. Yes, it ran for about a week and a half, but it didn't attract a lot of big names. And like you say, they've actually they went to that level of attracting big names, but notably this year, there hasn't been that much.
There's
usually when people are going to attend, usually by now there's a few announcements about, oh, this person's coming up. Obviously, James McAvoy is expected to attend because it's his film. So, but apart from that, we've not had very much at all in terms of guests, which again, maybe a conscious decision because again, that can generate a lot of interest in the festival, but on the other side of that, it costs them a hell of a lot of money to do that, you know. So
and with the amount of venues in Glasgow City Centre now down to one basically, and that is the GFT, they are probably scrambling for like, okay, we'll use the Odeon because it's the closest, but actually if you don't drive and you don't know Glasgow, it's a problem to, you know, you're maybe getting a bus or whatever out to.
Well, I mean, in previous years, they've used the Everyman down in Princess Square, and obviously there's the View Cinema as well. But obviously there's obviously issues with the View.
Closed because they're on strike,
So there's all sorts of things going on there. So, and like in previous years as well, they were using the CCA. I know they haven't in the last couple of years, but
I thought 5 is a perfect number there.
There is two venues.
2 cinemas, there's the downstairs one that actually has cinema seats, and there's the upstairs. There was the upstairs one, which was just like your fold out, like school chairs, as I would call them. The world's most uncomfortable seats. But if you wanted to go and see a film, that's where you would go.
It was quite a weird space that, because there was lots of seats all just in the one level, and then there was sort of bleacher style seats, and they were actually more comfortable than the ones downstairs, but they made loads of noise when you moved even a fraction as well. And I thought, oh my god! And you were really far back from the screen there as well, so it was it's kind of a weird setup. And the one downstairs was really small.
Yes,
there was only like 3 or 4 rows. Yeah, that was kind of weird. Yeah, it wasn't an ideal venue, and some of the films I saw in there were quite frankly awful, because it was like all these sort of weird, like really. If there was a Turkish film to be shown, you could be sure that it was going to be at the CCA venue, because it was got a limited audience, and you know it's about goat herders and things like this, that kind of idea, and you're like, okay, fair enough. But I saw a couple of good movies in there, but majority of them were obviously in the actual GFT themselves. But yes, it's interesting times as far as film in Glasgow is concerned, because probably by the summer we will have the Omni opened.
I suspect so.
In Renfrew Street, because they're working on it just now, and obviously they'll be wanting it open for blockbuster season. Yeah. So,
and the thing is, really, it's a rebranding. It's not like they're building a cinema from scratch. It's a rebranding. It's really strange, especially because, you know, when you go into Waterstones and Sucky Hall Street, there's book after book about Glasgow and how Glasgow was cinema city. You know, at one point in the world, we very famously had more cinemas per head of population than anywhere else. And I just think it's a shame that now it seems like there's just not the venues, or things are sort of changing and moving in a way that, like, as much as like screeners and stuff are useful for review, they're very helpful because maybe you can't make the time or that it's being shown, or maybe you can't make the venue. There is nothing quite like, as you've said with the fellow critics, actually experiencing something in a festival audience as well. Yeah. So I'm curious to see how this year will go and what it feels like, because as much as anything else, as much as obviously I love seeing the films, it is like how it makes you feel. That's a big part of that festival as well.
Yep, definitely. But you've got to worry that the likes of the GFT are still dependent on central government funding. in order to survive. And you're kind of thinking, well, they're obviously not getting the punters. People are not through the doors every day. I know they do get large audiences for like retrospectives and Christmas films and all that, but on the face of it, it looks like they may be struggling with what the current releases and things like that, the competition out there, which is not just bricks and mortar cinemas, it is watching stuff at home and things like that, because it's just becoming more and more expensive to do that. And I know they try and do as much as they can. Obviously, they offer like Cinecard deals, and like certain screenings are like £5-6 and all this kind of thing. But yeah, it must be really frustrating for them, because everything, you know, it's trying to make yourself popular and run a business, isn't it? And that's never easy. You find that in every sort of walk of life. You find that when the stuff that we do as well. There's a drive to become more popular in terms of podcasting and all that as well. And I'm inundated with emails saying, you know, we can increase your listenership and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I'm not interested in that at all. You know,
no. We're not doing this for the fame. You know? That's just a pleasant byproduct, isn't it, John? I mean, part of the thing with the GFT as well will be the fact that Glasgow City Centre is dying on its arse. So people aren't necessarily going into town unless it's for, I mean, this year it felt like there was more Christmas screenings at the GFT than I have ever seen listed. Like, I think It's a Wonderful Life played like 20 times or something, which for a 2.5 hour film is quite a lot. But I suspect they're making a lot of money from that, obviously, and that's why, you know, the screenings are upped, etc. But yeah, I mean, if you're not going into town for work or for something specific, I feel like people just aren't going into town, and therefore, if you're maybe going to, as you say, the Odeon where you can park and you can eat and you can go bowling and all the rest of it, then you're not going to go into town where you can't get your car through the ULEZ, you can't, you know, parking's a fortune, and half the restaurants and shops that you used to know are closed. So it's part of the sort of wider thing.
Yeah, you only need to look at where it's located, which is just off Sauchiehall Street. And the state, I know Sauchiehall Street is pretty much finished now in terms of the work that's been done on it, but like the shops and restaurants and everything, it's just it's horrible. And if you go there like on a sort of Friday and Saturday night, you don't want to be on Sauchiehall Street. It's a horrible place. So why would you want to go to a cinema and come out at 10 o'clock at night onto that? You'd be like, nah, you're all right. I think I'll just go somewhere else, you know. It may be a bit soulless, but at least there's that sort of feeling of it'll be a bit more safety about it.
Yeah, no, and I totally get that. Like it really is like, and that's the choices that people are making. So, I mean, their ticket prices are comparable, so it's probably not.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. I think it is just a wider sort of symptom of Glasgow City Centre being heavily on the decline. And even Sauchiehall Street, which I saw for the first time in months, they've demolished obviously like the Marks and Spencer, so there's now this big gap in the middle of the street as well, and the ABC's going, and that, like, it's just, I'm going to get off my soapbox.
No, it's the kind of thing we talk about all the time, unfortunately, which is never great. Okay, so on to better things.
Oh, there's so many films actually now that you think about it. The nervous breakdown thing, I generally looked at loads.
Yeah, I mean, the likes of Inception and Shutter Island, you could do that as sort of like altered reality and all that as well.
Yeah,
and that kind of plays into something like The Game was kind of that kind of way as well. So, but yeah, there's all sorts of scope for things. So all we need is to find a film about altered reality, and then we can fire in these ones as well. So
there we go. Yeah.